just wanted to welcome you all. Amarylis is going to, her computer is having some issues, so I'm going to try and run her slideshow for her. And we'll get started in just a few minutes. We have about 4 minutes left until it's time. Miriam, are you on here? I see you've got a question, but I don't see.
Yes, I am, but I've never done this before. I'm very new to this system, so how do I reply to you if I need to
well, you should,
do something?
If you have any questions, we're going to hold all questions down until the end of the call. I'm going to mute everybody in just a little bit. And you should see a chat session in the bottom.
Jill?
It's on the bottom left on mine. I don't know if it's on the bottom left of yours, but you should see a chat. But we'll open it up for questions at the end, and you'll just be able to see questions, or you can type questions into the chat area.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds good.
All right. Hello. And hey everybody, we're going to get started in just a few minutes. If you can't hear us on your computer, but you can't hear the audio, you wouldn't know that. It's like Monday, part 2 for me. I'm really technology savvy, but I like to call into a line instead of listening to it over my computer, so maybe people are like that.
The conference has been muted.
All right, everybody. You are all on mute now, so we don't hear any background noises. I just wanted to let you know that we'll get started here in about 2 minutes. And so, Amarylis, are you still on with us?
Yes. Yep,
okay.
I'm here.
Amarylis, I don't know how many of you know this, but Amarylis is due in 5 weeks with her second child. So there may be an unscheduled potty break at some point, in which case I will sing or do something.
Sing a dance.
Yeah. Too bad Gracie's not here. She could bark for you all. You're all on mute right now, except for Amarylis and I. We'll get started in just a minute. All right, we've had a few people join us. Just so you all know, you are all being muted right now. Ha ha ha. And especially Dawn Swan. We'll get started. We'll get started in just a few minutes, and we'll open it up and turn your audio back on at the end of the call. So we have a lot of people on here, and that's a great thing. We're glad you all joined us. And we'll get started in just about a minute or so. All right, for those just joining us, you are on the Handprint Parties How-To webinar, and we're going to get started in just a few minutes. All the audio has been muted at this point, and this is Laura from the CCSA. I hope you guys are all having a great day, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. At the end, we will give you all audio again, and you can ask questions for Amarylis. And again, also, if you have questions, you're welcome to type your questions into the chat bar. And Amarylis is having some computer issues this morning, So I will help narrate those questions at the end.
I was going to say I'm not very good at multitasking while I'm talking. So, I don't know how well I'll be able to answer questions while we're typing. But.
All right. All right. Well, I will be your assistant through this. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Handprint Parties, a how-to with Amarylis Barnett, who owns Handprint Hoopla, and everybody has been muted at this point. At the end, we will, if you'll hold all your questions till the end, we will answer questions at the end. We'll open your audio up. If you have a question, you don't want to try and remember it, you're welcome to type it into the chat area and into the questions, and we'll get to those at the very end. This is Laura from the CCSA. I see so many familiar names on there, and I hope you guys are having a great day. We want to welcome Amarylis, and I'm going to turn it over to you, Amarylis. So you just tell me. we're going to try something new. I'm going to actually move her slideshow through today. So just
I'll give you the signal.
You just give me the secret code as people are still continuing to join us. All right, Amarylis, take over.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Amarylis, and I owned a studio here in Birmingham called Painted by You for 12 and a half years. And last August, the lease ran out on the space, and my husband and I just decided that it was time to move on. But I didn't want to get out of this industry altogether. It's what I had known for a lot of years, and I love it. And, of course, all the relationships that were made over that time, I didn't want to go back to the corporate world, but I still had to make a living. So we had known that this lease would be coming up for renewal on that date. We knew August 2014 was the date that it was going to expire. So I had some time to figure out what to do. And we had decided, the truth is, before that date that we would not be renewing or looking for a new space. So I had to start planning for how it was going to be that even after I closed my store, I would be able to make some money in this industry. And so I decided that swapping over from a mobile model to a mobile model was the way to go. Since Painted by You, we already had established a really large off-site business. And I still wanted to do that, but I really enjoyed the custom part, the painting part, if you will, and I wanted some more flexibility other than, showing up to these very large events once a year, because we know that the big ones really only come around once or twice a year seasonally. So in other words, I didn't want to just do groups of 200-300 people and have to frantically get those items turned around in 1 week, because for me the goal was to kind of slow down but be able to be with my family and my daughter. So I started to consider doing off-site handprint parties because there were already a couple, 2 or 3 other people around Birmingham that were doing this. But to be honest, their designs were they're not the greatest, and I felt like I could kind of kick it up a little bit. Kick it up a notch a little bit. Or if you'll flip to the next slide. So how did I get started? Well, what I did was, that's kind of looking a little bit, the format on that was a little funky, so bear with me. I implemented a program, I guess it was because I knew that we would not be renewing. I had some time to kind of get this implemented. And I called it Handprint Hoopla. Now, you can come up with your own name. There are so many great ways to do plays on handprints and memories and prints and children. There's all kinds of great names. But I would do these events quarterly. And it was basically just a handprint program that a lot of studios have. But I made it an event, and I offered discounts for multiple items. And I did continue to offer, custom painting where somebody would come in and say, I want this exact item, this exact pattern, these exact colors. But for Handprint Hoopla, the way I started it was I just limited it to a certain number of designs that I knew that could be painted by me or my staff. And I discounted those pieces, and I said, okay, here's 5 different designs. You can come in, we can put them on any number of plates or platters or whatever, and it's discounted, and we would offer incentives, and we would do it seasonally or quarterly. And truthfully, if I needed the extra revenue, I would just throw a couple of Handprint days in the calendar if I just needed some extra money. And people would do, 3, 4, 5 pieces at a time. And what it was a way to get people to recognize the name Handprint Hoopla and to start becoming familiar with that program, that we would do that. So by the time I was ready to launch my home Handprint side, people were already familiar with my work and with the idea of us painting handprints. Another thing that I did was I stalked other companies. I had one lady that came in one time, and she worked for one of these other companies that were local. Like I said, there were 2 or 3 in Birmingham, and she told me how much money they made traveling even just about an hour north of where I am. And she said, yeah, we travel all over the place, and it's so great because we do like about $3,000 a pop for like 4 or 5 hours. And I was like, are you kidding me? Or do you know who you're telling this to? And so it really piqued my interest, and it motivated me to get this ball rolling, because I knew that if I could generate that kind of income, then I could definitely make a living doing this without my storefront. So I searched high and low on the internet, and I looked at the local business ones for how they did their parties, their shows or events. Everybody calls it something different. As well as for I wanted to know, I didn't want to copy them, but I wanted to get a sense for this industry, this part of the industry. I needed to know how they did rewards programs, what they required for their minimums, what their dates were that they were usually doing things. I just needed to get a sense for how they ran their business. And I didn't, like I said, just do it locally. There's all kinds of companies across the country that are doing this. And I would just search handprint parties, custom pottery, hands, prints, memories. I came up with all kinds of stuff. And even on Facebook, you can search pages and find information. So once I had a clear picture of how that side of the business could work, I created my own way of doing things. And I priced my items, and every year in the fall, which is kind of my new year in the fall, I look at that price list, and sometimes it stays the same, and sometimes it goes up. And so I just created my own operating manual, basically, and we'll get into that in just a second. And then I asked my friends to host a trial and error party for me. I told them that if they wouldn't mind, that I was trying to launch this new component of my store, and I said, if you would host me in your home, I'll give you double the rewards. And we may have some mistakes here or there, but I would rather make my mistake with my friends than with somebody that I didn't know. And I had 2 or 3 of them that said, yeah, we would love to have you. And so like I said, I offered them twice the reward, and we did it. We went to their home, and that's how I just kind of jumped in. That's kind of how I am. I'm a do something and then think later kind of girl. Shoot first, think later. So once I had the items painted for those groups, those initial 2 or 3 groups that I did, I created a Facebook page, and I uploaded pictures with their items in it, created folders for each party, and then I started inviting my friends, just generally speaking, hey guys, I've got a new component to my business. Would you support it by liking my page? Well, eventually that group has grown to over about 1,000 likes. And every time I book a party, I tell my hostesses to direct all their people to that Facebook page so it continues to grow. And what it does is it generates excitement because I post a lot of pictures on there, and it just generates excitement for each party. Oh, I have to have this. I love this ornament. I've got to have this for my grandma. I've got to have this. So that was just a very important component of what we did. Laura, if you don't mind switching to the next slide. The system. What is the system that I came up with? Well, I had to learn how to respond to an inquiry. And I knew if I didn't streamline that process, I would be responding to emails and questions the entire day. So I created a document with exhaustive instructions and information for my potential hostesses. And I'm happy to give you guys a copy, and you can email me directly, or certainly I could message Laura or send it to Laura, and she can distribute it to whoever is attending this meeting. But my email address is T as in Paul, Barnett, BARNETT, @bellsouth.net. And you can shoot me an email, and I'll just send that back to you. I do ask you that you keep it confidential. You don't pass it around to other studios who may or may not be CSA members. But it spells out minimums for groups, hostess rewards. It instructs the hostess on how to set her appointments, because that's how we manage the crowds. We don't just set a large, time for a party, 9 to 2. Everybody has an appointment, and it stipulates the expected return times, and it just tells everything. So basically, when somebody would inbox me, I would say, it's great to hear from you. I would love to visit with you and your family and your friends and their children. Here is some information on how we do things, and here is a sample price list. It's very clear that it says I may or may not always bring this pottery, but this is a sample of what we might bring. And then can I check a date for you? So I didn't have to retype everything I needed to tell everybody. I just always would send them this letter that I had come up with. So, of course, you settle on a date. Kind of go back and forth. You settle on a date. You make yourself available to answer questions. And then you always want to verify the number of guests about a week before the party. These groups are no different than the groups that you get in your studio. In other words, the numbers can be fluid. So if someone says 20 guests, you can be sure that it's going to be less than 20 people. Also, the word guest can mean one thing to one person and another thing to another. I had a hostess one time that was like, I have 40 people coming. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I'm going to have to bring like 8 people to help me with this thing. And what she meant was she probably had, 8 to 10 families that all totaled to about 40 people. But for me, what I'm looking for is an order, because one mom comes in, even if she has 3 kids, that's still one order, if that makes any sense, or one group. And then once by the way, we're going to unpack all this in just a minute. Once your event is over, for me personally, I like to allow 4 to 6 weeks for return of items, or sometimes 6 to 8 weeks if it's a heavy holiday season. You want to book your groups accordingly. If you book a large Christmas group, November 1st, sometimes people will order Thanksgiving stuff. You're going to have a hard time getting that back. So, take a look at your calendar, figure out how quickly you can get things back. For me, I do 4 to 6 weeks because I want that flexibility. Like I said, I want the income, I want the revenue, but I also want my family. I want to be able to take care of my family, and so I set the turnaround time at 4 to 6 weeks, which was commensurate with what other handprint companies were doing here and across the country. So, all right, let's talk about the actual practical how we do things. All right, if you'll swap over for me, Laura. What is in your to-go box? Okay, let's get ready to party. What do we need in your supply box? Well, I have a plastic bin that I carry. Just my very basic items in, except, of course, the pottery. We'll talk about that in a minute. I like to stock about 30 to 40 colors. I use Dare. And the 2-ounce bottles are super easy to manage. They're not heavy. They fit perfectly in that bin, along with so many other things. If your supplier's not carrying 2-ounce bottles anymore, I understand some of them are getting away from that. So then, just purchase 2-ounce bottles online. You can fill them with whatever colors you like. But for me, I like to carry a lot of colors. I've done this for several years now, and I've got lots of designs, so I always have a light, medium, dark of all the colors, and just then some random whites too. So with them being 2 ounces, they're so manageable and so easy to carry around that it's not a problem. And you never need more than 2 ounces. I mean, you'll never run out of paint to do handprints, even if you only have 2 ounces. You always want to carry some pencils with you. Of course, brushes. The large, I just do 6 to 8 large round brushes. Pencils and pencil sharpener. I know that's controversial, but I use pencils. I don't have any problem with pencils. And I'm not sketching a lot on the pottery. In a second, we'll talk about the uses of some of this stuff, but I mostly just use it for putting the customer's name on the pottery in the back. Occasionally I'll sketch on it, but I don't have any problems. But you always want to have pencils and a pencil sharpener because it gets dull really easily. If you're uncomfortable with the pencils, put the water-based marker in there, although you want to be careful because those can sometimes get really light. A box cutter for opening new pottery boxes. Very often I'll just put a brand new box of plates, and then don't have to use my keys to open the box. It's so much easier to use a box cutter, so I just throw a box cutter in there. Order forms and information sheets. They're half sheets that I have that, again, I'm willing to share with you guys. It's just one of them is just customer name and phone number and some disclaimers that they'll sign. And then there's the actual order forms that I've condensed into a half sheet. And for every item, I fill out one of these order forms. Disposable plates, wipes. You always want to have wipes. Otherwise, your child is going to have to go wash their hands every single time you do a hand print. It's so much easier to just have a big, giant box of wipes. A towel for yourself. Pictures. I take pictures of everything. And then I just made just some photo albums that I keep handy, and I put that in my big plastic box too. And when I've unpacked everything, I just put 3 or 4 of those little albums around for people to start looking at. It really helps get their brain going. And then your smartphone to make charges and to take payments. I tell hostesses that I definitely prefer checks. I don't carry much change. I encourage them to not bring cash because you never know how much change you're going to need for these types of events. But I definitely would prefer a check, and certainly you can accept credit cards. I like to use PayPal anywhere. Some folks use Square. You can also call your merchant services provider, and they can probably give you a little card swiper for your phone. All right, let's talk about pottery and what it is that you – hang on a second. I have one more thing to say about pottery. You need to come to peace with the fact that you can't take 20 of everything with you. I used to do that because I didn't want to run out of something, but now if we run out, I just say, that's cookies. I used to carry, during those first, I told you about the first 3 parties that I did where my friends were hosting for me. I didn't want to run out of anything, so I was carrying 2 cases of everything and things that just were random, like the cupcake platter that you could put a handprint in the middle, or giant vases, or just these random items. And I thought, oh, this would be great for a handprint. But it was just weighing me down. It was so much labor to do that. So now I definitely keep it really easy. And I do a case each, and this can vary. I will sometimes throw something in that's not part of this list, but on the whole, I'll do a case each of salad, dinner, or charger coupes, a tall and a short mug that are both a good size for handprints, obviously, a message frame for handprints, 6 to 8 inch tiles, about 10 each of those, a couple of large platters, maybe those large ones with rectangles with handles. I price them kind of high, so I don't sell tons of them, but there's always 1 or 2 people that will want to look at one, so I only carry 2 or 3 of them. Always want to have large ball ornaments. Definitely a couple of cases of those. They're not very heavy, so they're perfect for handprints, and I always take them. People will do 5, 6, 7 of those at a time. And then a rectangle and a square sushi plate. Try to stay away from things that have rims on them because you never know how many kids a family's going to bring. So I always just try to make sure it's a sushi or a coupe style platter. And that might seem like a lot, but it's really not a lot. And you'll find that your hostesses will help you with loading and unloading, and they usually put their husbands to work. It's definitely not an issue. All right, party time. I tell my hostesses that I will be at their home approximately 30 minutes before the party is to begin in order to unload and unpack. So you will have already stipulated that you need a place for pottery and a place for printing, and they'll be prepared for you. So they know that you're going to need a spot to present your pottery, and then that you're also going to need a spot where you're going to spread out your paints, and while people are looking for their pottery, you'll just kind of move them over to, let's say it's the dining room table versus the kitchen table. And that's in the letter. We need a space for this and for this. And I always like to allow the hostess to select her items first in case something runs out, because every party is different. Everybody's going to want something. I'll have a party where all I will sell is mugs, and then I'll have a party where everybody wants a salad plate. But you never know what you're going to run out of first, so I always tell the hostess, go ahead and pick something out, but set it aside, and then we'll just do her stuff at the end, because at the end she's going to know what kind of credit she's got going on. Then the guests should start arriving by appointment, and because that's how we do things. We don't just set a meeting time and say the party is from 9 to 2, just show up. No, that is a recipe for chaos. In the sheet that we send out at the very beginning when they've inquired, it tells the hostess how to go about setting appointments, 20 minutes apart, 15 to 20 minutes apart for each of her guests. So we know that if we're starting at 9 o'clock, our first appointment is, I'm going to get there at 8:30, and her first appointment is going to be there at 9 o'clock, and then at 9:20 and 9:40, and so on. So otherwise, if you don't do it like that, and the other thing is you want to tell your guests to arrive a few minutes early. I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes, just so they can kind of start looking. Otherwise, you're going to get behind. Because once you're consulting with your customer, you'll have to learn the art of persuasion, because it's like when you're at Subway and you've got somebody in front of you and they come in knowing that they want a sandwich, but all the toppings and the variety just makes it impossible for them to pick. And you want to kill that person because it's just a sandwich. So you have to learn. This is where your sales skills from your studio and these pictures that we talked about earlier, they come in handy. So learn the art of persuasion. Once they've picked out their item, you're going to sit down with the customer, make notes of what they want on the order form, just like you would in your studio. You want to label the item with their name so that when it's time to bring everything back and you're sitting down and painting, or whoever your artist is painting, they'll match the order form to the plate and they'll know what it is to do. And make sure that you always label every plate, every item with the customer's name. And then once you're done making notes, you'll just staple that information sheet that we talked about also earlier with the customer's name and phone number and email address and that they've signed off on. You'll staple all that together, and then you'll stamp hands and feet on everything that they want. And you're going to use your wipes, like I said, so the child doesn't have to go to the sink each time to wash their hands, because that just takes extra time. And then finally, you just settle up using whatever method you prefer. Like I said, I really like PayPal Anywhere. It logs checks and cash and credit cards, and it allows me to send receipts. If the customer uses PayPal already, it recognizes that. I just really like it to Square or any of the other ones, but a lot of people really like Square. And then, like I said, contact your merchant services, because everybody's got a mobile option these days. So, all right, let's move on to after the party. You'll move to the next one, Laura. All right, so after the party's done, I like to pack everything back up in the boxes and keep the printed items at the top, so that when I get back to the studio, or now my home and my garage, I can easily unpack what needs to be painted and then just store the rest. If you've got multiple parties in your pipeline, then you want to be sure to come up with a way to keep up with all these items together. You know, the Smith party is together, the Parker party is together, or whatever. You don't want to mix this up. You can use it any number of ways. You can use a box to stack items in or label them, or up and then to put take a Sharpie of whatever color, and all the items of that group will all have an orange dot, and it's so tiny it burns off with residue, so you're good there. So you know what, there's any number of systems in, and I'm sure you can come up with something. You also want to keep your order forms organized. I use a manila envelope and label the outside with the date of the party, the date that it's due for return, and then of course the hostess' name is on there too. You want to begin to work through painting each item. So, because once you've done all that, you're ready to start painting. And that for me is the fun part. I mean, I will sit upstairs in my studio and just paint, and watch Netflix. It's the most relaxing time. It's my favorite part. And for me, it's great. Now, I tell them that there's a 4 to 6 week lead time. I need that because if you're a working mom, then you need that extended time. And like I said, that's kind of why I sort of got into this side of things. And if you're working in your storefront, you'll need that time as well, especially if it's a holiday, because there can be as many as 40 to 50 items from any given party. So there is definitely sweat equity involved. You have to know that it's not just working those first few hours doing the party, but there definitely is time afterwards. But the good news is it's crazy flexible if you give them enough time to get it back. So then once you've completed each item, of course you're going to pack everything up individually with the customer's name on it. And then I like to attach a pre-printed thank you note with my information on it. And I'll read to you real fast what mine says. It's really short and sweet. Again, I'll be glad to share this with you. Where it says, thank you so much for allowing me to capture a moment in your child's life. As you can imagine, a hand-painted item can leave room for error. If you happen to notice a spelling error or a mistake in the age of the print, please contact me as soon as possible. Oftentimes, it is a simple fix that only requires another firing. Occasionally, we may have to start over. My contact information is located at the end of this letter. Please note that variations in color, glaze, thickness, and even an occasional smudge or two is normal and even to be expected in ceramics. I want to set that expectation that I have handled this item a lot of times, and yes, I may have accidentally put a thumbprint on your item, so I want them to expect that. And I finish up by saying it was my pleasure to create a keepsake, and I look forward to hearing what you think as well. Thanks again for your business. I'm honored to be trusted with such precious cargo. And then, of course, you just make arrangements for delivery or for pickup. When I had my studio, I would encourage my guests to come to the studio and pick up, but I certainly didn't mind meeting my customers back at their place of work or somewhere at their convenience. More often than not, they would come to my studio to pick it up. All right, y'all hanging in there? We're almost done.
We do have one question that might be appropriate here. I don't know if you're going to cover it, but on average, how long does it take you to paint a piece to do what you do on site?
Okay, to paint the piece, it's going to depend. I don't mean to sound vague, but it's going to depend. There are times where the customer wants something that I have painted 1,000 times, like those darn handprint flowers that we all do. I can do those in my sleep and finish it 25 minutes. I mean, super, super simple. And then there's sometimes where they challenge me a little bit, and it will take me longer, an hour or so. Or, of course, if a piece is much larger. But if I had to say an average, I would say probably 25 to 30 minutes per item. But if it's a tile, you guys know that we can make it be 15 to 20 minutes. And the other thing to consider is we all have our own style. So I tend to put a little more effort because I love lots of color. I love lots of detail. But the next person, that may not be what they like to do. That may not be their preference. And they're just good with, polka dots and maybe an outlining. So I think that there's room for flexibility there. Definitely. All right, let's go to the last slide really fast. And then I can open it up for questions, and I'm happy to just tell you everything that I do. And that's how I do my parties. That's how I make my living now. I did want to keep this webinar mostly to just a how-to, because there's been lots of questions of how exactly what is the actual process. So, but I do want to mention a couple of numbers for those that were curious. And you want to keep in mind this is an average. I've done my share of parties that are less than $1,000. You end up just like with our studios. You think you're going to get a big group, and everybody gets sick on that day or cancels or whatever. So I've done my share of groups that are less than $1,000, and certainly done my share where they're more than a couple thousand. But on the whole, I usually come away with it being $1,500 to $2,000. One of the major benefits for me is the ability to decide how many parties to take and turn down. After doing this for several years now and developing a following, I'm able to really make my own schedule, especially during those busy times. It's been a real blessing. But you have to take advantage of those busy times. So I do work extra hard in the fall. August and September are the very busiest as people start looking ahead to the holidays. And because there's only a certain number of weekends, and down here in Alabama, we have to deal with football schedules. So there's only a certain number of weekends that are available. Like I'm already booked for the fall. I mean, it's April. I'm already booked. There's no availability left in the fall for me. But in September, I'll do an average of about 8 parties. August, it's about the same. So if you do the math, 16 times and I would say the average would be on the upper end just because that's the holiday season. So that's a good chunk of change. And I will say again, I've been doing this for several years. It didn't start off that way, but it's a great way to ramp up some extra revenue. And then I do cut my parties off in the first week, or maybe if I feel like I'm able to catch up by the second week of October, because I do want to leave open the middle to end of October and early November for those large-scale school groups that we only get once a year. I do want to be able to go do those 200 to 300 students that want to do Christmas ornaments that I'm not going to get in January or February. So, and I have to have the time also to paint all these 300-400 pieces that are, or however many pieces I've done in these handprint parties. I have to have the time because for me, for my little company, I'm a little bit of a control freak when it comes to that. I'm the only one that does the painting. So if you have somebody that you're comfortable with that can do the painting for you, or 2 or 3, then certainly you could expand your deadline. And then since I don't have a storefront anymore, my only overhead is inventory and kiln cost. I mean, I don't even count my time because I just do it when I have it because my turnaround time gives me that flexibility. So it's really nice because I can make a lot more now than I had when I was paying a few $1,000s in rent, that's for sure. So I hope that helps you guys a little bit as you consider starting your own program. So I'll just go ahead and open it up for questions. I'm happy to.
The conference has been unmuted.
All right, you guys are all unmuted now, so you're free to ask questions.
What is the average cost per person to do at a party? I'm sorry. I didn't understand.
Average cost per person to do a party.
The average cost per person?
Yeah.
So you mean what they're spending with me?
Yes.
They will spend. I would say an average is about $150. 150.
Okay.
What is your markup, or how do you charge for painting?
Well, I wish I had a formula. I don't have a formula. I looked at what my competitors were charging, and I looked at when I was doing all that research I talked about earlier. I looked at what they were charging, and I just kind of did the same thing. And then every year I reevaluate. Do I feel like I'm getting paid enough for this platter? So I'm afraid I don't have a great answer for that. I just kind of looked around and said I want to be competitive, and I feel like at this point, because I feel like my work is good, I can charge a little bit more than my competitor, but I do want to stay competitive. So I just look around. I don't have a formula. I will tell you that. I'm sorry. I'm going to say. I'll tell you that my salad plates, I want to say I do like salad plates are 35, then 45, then 55, going up. So if that gives you an idea, I do like $25 for a 8-inch tile.
The conference has been unmuted.
It's not a crazy amount of money that I'm charging for it, but I feel like they're getting their money's worth.
All
The
right,
conference has been muted.
I'm going to mute the call again. We have a ton of background noise and we can barely hear. So if you guys will type your questions, I'll read them to her. Amarylis, can you please repeat your email again?
The email?
Uh-huh.
The thank you note that I did?
Can you repeat your contact information, your email address?
A, P as in Paul, initial A, P as in Paul, Barnett, BARNETT, @bellsouth.net.
Okay. Where do you get your ideas from?
My head. I do, and there are times when a customer will bring me something that somebody else has done, and certainly there's some wonderful, wonderful artists out there, some great stuff, but I don't want to copy somebody, so because it's just not cool. So I'll use it as inspiration. I'll just do my own take on it. But I do most of the time I just come up with my own stuff. If somebody, like recently I had somebody that said, I want you to do a cowboy boot around my daughter's foot. So I Googled clip art of cowboy boots just so I could get an idea of maybe a pattern to put on there. So things like that, but most of the time it just comes out of my head.
All right. Do you paint the background on them before or after you've done the handprint?
After. All that goes on there is the handprint. I mean, it's a plain old piece of pottery, and I just put the handprint on there, and then I work around the handprint. A few years ago, I did a handprint class at convention, and I talked about how I really like to use latex or masking. I think that's what you guys call it, masking, just latex, liquid latex. And depending on the design, oftentimes I will mask off the handprint with the liquid latex, and that will help me with the background. But I usually, I use a lot of writer bottles. I mean, I have every single color, a bottle in every single color for those writer bottles. So I use a lot of those that help me get into the nooks and crannies and details. You can see my work at facebook.com/handprinthoopla.
All right. How do you learn to do the great handwriting? Great is in all caps.
Oh, well, thank you. You know what? This is the most basic of answers. Practice, practice, practice. And that is the God's honest truth. I had a young lady that worked for me years and years ago, and she is the one who taught me how to letter. And I just got it in my head that I wanted to learn how to do it, and I would just practice. And I look back at some of those early items that I did, and I can see the improvement over the years. And then eventually it just becomes intuitive. So I know it's not a fun answer, but it's so true. It's just practice, practice, practice. And
All right.
and don't be scared of it. Don't be scared of it.
All right. And how do you get the pieces back? Do you get them back to the hostess? Do you have them come to your studio to pick it up? Do you bring the pieces to the person?
I definitely, occasionally, somebody would contact me from the party, like an individual guest would contact me, and I would let them come to the studio and pick up their item. But part of that initial inquiry letter says the hostess is responsible for everybody's pottery. So she's responsible. If you've, like I said, I don't have a storefront anymore, so now I just make arrangements directly with the hostess to bring items to her or to meet her somewhere. But when I had my studio, I would tell them the hostess is required to come pick up the items from our studio, and she distributes them. I don't want to be responsible for distributing 20 different orders.
All right. Does it ever feel strange or awkward to go into someone's home and like feel unsafe or strange or weird?
Never, never, never. I don't do this is the I don't do off-site parties like birthday parties, or you don't have large-scale events in homes. I don't do that. But if in this case, I have never felt unsafe. It's always been, I've been doing it for a lot of years. I have never run into anybody that I'm just like got 911 at the ready.
Yeah, and
it's always.
I don't think they make a bisque mace holder, but maybe we should suggest that.
Yes, maybe. No, it's not uncomfortable at all. I know that sounds crazy, but they are usually so sweet, so friendly. And, most of them, they all have children, and they just want a discount on their stuff, and that's why they're having a party.
All right. Do you charge a fee for the party to bring it to them on top of the items that they purchase?
I don't. Now, I know that there are some folks that do that, but I don't. I don't want there to be any obstacle to somebody booking a party with me.
Okay. Do you and how do you position if background is later? So how do you position? I'm guessing that's Deborah, and I'm guessing that's how do you position the handprint if you're going to paint the background later?
I think that probably just comes with experience, just knowing where it is, knowing what your design is going to be. The other thing to do is, there again, is just using your sales skills and your persuasion skills on getting them to do what you want them to do so that you know when you print that hand, it's going to do what you want it to do. I don't know if that makes any sense. Getting them to like if you know that they want some weird, crazy-looking flower that you may not be able to execute because how small or large the hand is or the size of the piece, then maybe you can talk them into a different flower that you know will work. That's that's a very basic explanation, but it really does just come with experience.
And Amarylis, I'm going to ask you, if this is Laura, by the way, from the CCSA, for everybody who doesn't know, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and email me everything that you've said that you would give to them, and I'll include it to everybody who attended this.
Totally.
And include it with the follow-up email that also will give them the link to this webinar. So if you will go ahead and do that for me, I would appreciate it. Do you price per type of design?
No, I price per item.
Okay. Do you keep a lot of inventory on hand, or do you order it as you book parties?
I used to, when I had my studio, I was able to keep inventory ahead of time. Now that I'm working out of my home in my garage, I have to order on time.
All right. And then what is the benefit for the hostess? I know you said you've got a hostess page you're going to share with us. They get a free piece.
Yeah.
Do they get a percentage?
They do. They get a, I'm trying to multitask here while I'm talking, even though I'm not that good at it, because I was going to read it straight out of my letter for you. Okay, the hostess receives 10% credit on total sales for the party. And then if there are, sometimes there will be multiple hostesses that get together, and I make sure that they know that the 10% is split among the hostesses. If any of the guests book a party, then that hostess gets a $10 credit when she buys something at their party. So 10%. So basically, if they do $1,500 in sales, they're going to get $150 to spend with me. So their pottery is free.
All right. On your Facebook page, Joe noticed that you outlined the handprints with a black Rider bottle. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Do you go by yourself, or do you take a helper?
It depends on how many people we're expecting. It used to be before I did everything on my phone or take payments on my phone, it took a long time to write receipts and to add up numbers and to take payments. So I would always like to take somebody with me. But now that I just use my smartphone and zip them an email with their amount, I can do everything on my own. Mm-hmm. It's definitely more fun to take somebody with you. It's great to have somebody that's already helping the person that's looking at their pottery make a decision while you're doing the handprints and settling up. So I would say if you're just getting started, take somebody with you until you sort of get into the groove and understand how it all works.
All right. And what ages do you recommend for the prints? Any tricks for tiny baby hands?
Well, I think it's no different than in your studios. I can do baby prints. I've learned over the years that if you will put your fingers into the paint and then pull the baby's fingers out, the fingers that are on, the paint that is on your fingers will rub off on theirs, and then you just flatten it. But we tell our mamas, just like you guys do in studios, that babies don't always handprint great. So, you know, we'll do our very best. We usually get a pretty good one, but sometimes we come out with four fingers instead of 5. But I also tell them that because I always, and it's not right or wrong, I just always outline handprints. Even if there's an imperfect handprint, the outlining can give you the illusion that you have everything's perfect. So but it's not any different than in your own studios. And it might, you know, maybe I know that there's a couple of videos out in CCSA land about how to do handprints for babies. It might be worth kind of linking to this somewhere along the way.
Yeah, see if I can find those. With the recent inconsistency of ceramics, such as shivering, how do you handle if a piece fails?
I have had 0 shivering problems. I keep a close eye on what everybody is saying on chatter, and I keep a close eye to make sure that I'm not purchasing those particular items that people are struggling with. And I don't do a lot of, I don't paint entire backgrounds, if that makes sense. You know, I'm not going to paint the entire background of a piece is not going to be, I don't know, solid blue or something. So which tends to be the time when it shivers is when you have that thick coat of paint. Most of the time it's a blank background that I work around. So I have literally had zero shivering problems.
All right. Well, I don't have any more questions in my queue. Last chance, if you have a question, you can pop it on there. And I want to thank Amarylis. And again, Amarylis, you want to go ahead and repeat your email address for folks if they need to,
Sure.
and also your Facebook page.
Sure. Okay. Amarylis, Amarylis, that's my name, Barnett. My email address is P as in Paul, Barnett, apbarnett @bellsouth.net. And the Facebook page is just facebook.com/handprinthoopla.
All right. Do you or have you ever considered selling plate stands, hangers, etc.?
I don't sell those, and certainly it would be a great addition. I am just trying to keep things really simple, so I don't do that.
All right. And then Regina wants to know, what paint and glaze do you use?
I use Gare Fun Strokes. Have used them for many years, and I love their colors. And with an occasional Mako or Duncan thrown in, to be honest. And then I use the oh my gosh, I forgot the name. It's the green stuff. I can't remember what it's called.
Amarylis has baby brain.
Yes, I can't remember the name. It's crazy. It's Duncan Green, the green from Duncan. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. I'm so sorry, Duncan. I can't remember. But I use at my studio I use dipping glaze. But like now that I'm working out of my garage, I actually just use brush-on glaze.
Deborah said it's pure brilliance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Sorry, I couldn't remember it.
For those who don't know, Amarylis is going to have a baby on June 1st, so she has baby brain. We're allowed to let her have forgetful moments. I am not pregnant, and I have baby brain all the time. So, all right. So we have no more questions. I learned a lot, and I hope you all did too. Again, you'll get an email as soon as I get the recording done. I'll send out a follow-up email to you all, and it'll have a link. And we had a question on our Facebook chat site and a couple of emails this morning. Is this okay to share with managers or employees?
Sure.
And you can, happily share any of the public CCSA information with your managers and employees, especially if you think that you might have somebody that on your staff that might be able to head up some handprint parties and bring you some additional revenue. Definitely feel free to share the webinar with your employees. We just ask that you don't share it with other studios who may or may not be a CCSA member. And if they're not a CCSA member, you tell them to call me. And we want to thank you guys. We had great attendance today. Thank you. You had great questions. I'll have the slides and the webinar recording up later on our website, and we'll post something in our CCSA chatter about it. Check out Amarylis' Facebook page, and as soon as I get those documents, I'll also send those to you all. I'm going to end the meeting now, so I just wanted to thank you all, and thank you for being CCSA members. We definitely appreciate it. And Ursula said congratulations.
Thank you.
So, I thought that was for me. Anyway, you guys have a great rest of your week, and take care. And I hope we'll see everybody at convention, and maybe even Amarylis and a new little baby.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.